Chapter 310. After reaching the 6th level of Qi refining, converting spiritual energy into true Qi to attack his acupoints wasn't as easy as it had been in the beginning. At this moment, the sword Qi in his dantian gave Li Qingshan a huge inspiration. He tried to merge the sword Qi into his true Qi to forcefully open his meridians and attack his acupoints. He never imagined that he would actually succeed. His own true Qi was extremely pure, and with the help of the sword Qi in his dantian, he no longer faced any bottlenecks on the path of Qi refining. As expected, the cursive sword tome was extraordinary. Lu Chuanfeng watched as Li Qingshan took a step out of the corridor, the cloud rapidly gathering beneath his feet. The speed at which he executed his magical technique was astonishing. "Where are you going?" "To find Chu Tian, of course. It's best if I take back those spirit stones." Li Qingshan waved his hand without even turning his head. Little and leapt onto the cloud. "I'll let you have 3 moves." With a whoosh, the cloud left a long tail behind it as it sped away. On the Confucian island of virtuous virtue, the Buddhists had a forest of pagodas, while the Confucians had a forest of steels. On the Confucian island of virtuous virtue, the Buddhists had a forest of pagodas, while the Confucians had a forest of steels. Chu Tian and a group of Confucian disciples sat in front of a large stele, impatiently listening to the professor recount the past. What dogs hit virtuous virtue? How could he compare to a celestial? Chu Tian watched as the professor suddenly stopped talking and looked behind him. When he turned his head, his eyes went wide. He saw Li Qingshan leaning against a stone stele, smiling at him. He didn't seem depressed or resentful because of his defeat. In fact, he even waved his hand as if he were greeting an old friend. Furthermore, he was also in the 7th level of Qi refining. Just like him. This greatly disappointed Chu Tian, who had hoped to see Li Qingshan look like a defeated dog. Ignoring the fact that he was in the middle of a lecture, he suddenly stood up. "Li Qingshan, it's about time. Let's call it a day." The professor looked up at the sky. He didn't want to offend a genius like Chu Tian, who was currently in the limelight. In any case, not many people were willing to listen. The Confucian disciples gathered around Chu Tian and gazed at Li Qingshan nearby. Their gazes were filled with contempt and disdain. Chapter 46. I'll let you have 3 moves. Chu Tian said, "You still dare to come?" Li Qingshan said, "Why wouldn't I dare? What do you want? Could it be that you're here to admit defeat? That's more like a man calling me boss. From now on, have you ever beaten me?" Li Qingshan's interruption enraged Chu Tian. He pointed at Li Qingshan. "Don't think that I can't do anything to you just because you're acting like a shameless dog." Li Qingshan said, "How about it? Do you want me to give you a chance and let you win? So it's like that. Alright, I agree. I'm just afraid that you'll run away with your tail between your legs again." Chu Tian sneered. The Confucian disciples roared with laughter. Li Qingshan stretched out 4 fingers and said, "This time, let's bet this number. For 1,000 spiritual stones." The laughter stopped. The Confucian disciples who came to listen to this lecture were all new disciples. In their entire lives, they had never seen so many spirit stones. They couldn't help but be frightened by this number. Chu Tian was also stunned. Li Qingshan said, "What? Don't you have that many spirit stones? Do you want me to lend them to you?" "All right. Since you want to give me spirit stones, how could I not agree?" Chu Tian sneered. His heart was filled with wild joy. He was filled with absolute confidence. He had already comprehended the 5 elements grand palm to an extremely deep level. Because he cultivated 5 types of true Qi, the 5 elements supported each other. His true Qi was more than 10 times that of an ordinary 7th layer Qi practitioner. How could he lose? The same place and time. Let's set it to 3 days from now. Otherwise, we'll run into some trouble and let a villain get carried away. This time, I'll make you accept your defeat wholeheartedly, Chu Tian said fiercely. Not only did he want to win, he wanted to ruthlessly humiliate Li Qingshan. He wanted him to understand the difference between a mortal and a genius. 3 days later, on the great martial arts field of the School of the Military. This was Li Qingshan's first time coming to War Island. The great martial arts field was like a giant wrestling ring. However, there weren't any densely packed seats. Instead, there were tall platforms of different heights erected in the surroundings. These were the places to watch the martial arts. From afar, the levels were distinct and rather rhythmic. There wasn't the slightest bit of disorder. It was clearly the work of the school of Moism's architects. Chu Tian stood with his hands behind his back. His white clothes fluttered in the wind. Although he couldn't be considered handsome, he was filled with a powerful aura in the eyes of the bystanders. The surrounding tall platforms were filled with people. Such a grand bet had already attracted the attention of the entire 100 schools of thought. Figures could also be vaguely seen standing on the few VIP seats at the highest point. Wang Puxi looked up at the sun. The time was almost here. However, Li Qingshan hadn't arrived yet. The other spectator stands were in a heated discussion. On one of the tall platforms, a group of legalist disciples were either sitting or standing. Among them, there was no lack of familiar faces that Li Qingshan recognized. Why isn't that guy here yet? Don't tell me he's scared again. He's giving away several thousand spiritual stones in a single go. Why haven't I encountered a good opponent like him before? Stop talking. He's the primary disciple of the School of Novels. You can't afford to offend him. Wu Zhen said extremely seriously. It led to a series of laughter. Wu Zhen smiled too. He thought he was complacent. Rongji, how much did you bet this time? Qian Rongji said, the same as last time. The same? You won't? Last time, Qian Rongji had bet on Li Qingshan and lost quite a lot of spiritual stones, so Wu Zhen had mocked Li Qingshan greatly. He never thought she would bet like that again this time, which left Wu Zhen rather annoyed. Right now, she had quite a few pursuers in the 100 schools of thought. She even seemed to have a rather ambiguous relationship with the genius Chu Tian, but she remained distant from him the entire time. Wang Puxi lowered his head and asked Hua Sengzan beside him, how much did you bet this time? Hua Sengzan sat on the edge of the stands and extended 2 fingers without even looking back. 2,000. I have to make up for what I lost last time. Wang Puxi said, you trust him that much? Hua Sengzan smiled. I lost this time, but I'll bet 4,000 next time. He's coming. He's coming. There were calls from below, and everyone raised their heads. A cloud with a long tail flew over, sweeping past a tall tower. Little and leapt off and landed beside the One Thought Master. The One Thought Master looked at his primary disciple he had not seen in quite some time with a bitter smile, but he had no idea whether to criticize or praise him. At least there was someone beside him now. It was an unwritten rule among the 100 schools of thought that only the primary disciple could stand beside the school leader. Although the highest platform was very empty, there could not be more than 2 people on it at most. Hua Sengzan said, Old Wang, were you this fast in the past? My talent in the water element is only at the B level. Wang Puxi could use the ice hell, so he was obviously familiar with the most practical water element technique. However, even he had not been this fast when he was at the 10th layer. This speed doesn't seem like it's just high A, Hua Sengzan said in thought. The formations for testing elemental attributes only targeted Qi practitioners. High A was already an extremely rare talent, so there was no point in setting it any higher. After reaching the 2nd layer of the Spirit Turtle's method of Qi suppression, Li Qingshan's senses for the water element had increased drastically, which was why he could sense the snow falling outside from his dwelling in seclusion. Just like the ox demon's fist of great strength and the tiger demon's fist of bone forging, the Spirit Turtle's method of Qi suppression gradually changed his constitution. Using a human formation to test the water element of a Spirit Turtle was just a joke, wasn't it? The Spirit Turtle was water itself. No, it was the ruler of water. After letting go of Little and the cloud stabbed down. It did not slow down at all, rushing straight towards the ground. With a boom, the cloud dispersed and dust rose into the air. Yu Zijian felt her right hand tighten. She saw that Hua Qinglu was extremely nervous. Are you worried about him? Yu Zijian asked softly. Idiot, I bet a lot of spiritual stones. Hua Qinglu stared into the dust and could vaguely make out a figure standing upright. Only then did she stop worrying. When the dust dispersed, Li Qingshan stood with his arms crossed. He smiled faintly, and his bronze face radiated with great confidence. His green robes, which were supposed to be very elegant, gave off a strong aura when he wore them. At this moment, the timing was perfect. The host of the duel, the military spider, Han Anjuan, said, "During the duel, no pills, talismans, puppets, or spiritual stones are allowed. Once you break the rules, you'll be judged as having lost immediately." This was the rule of the duels of the academy. The duelists mostly competed in terms of martial arts and skill, increasing the intensity of the competition. It was not a battle to the death. Once they used external objects, it would become a pointless battle of attrition, wasting tremendous resources for nothing. This was not something the academy approved of. The reason why the school leader, Han Anjuan, had been chosen as the referee was to ensure that the duel could be stopped at crucial moments and avoid casualties. After a simple explanation of the rules, Han Anjuan cut right to the chase. "Do you have any objections?" "No." "Begin." The giant lumberman, Wood Kuei, wielded a huge hammer and struck the gong that was even taller than him. A thunderous sound rang through the entire island, startling the birds. The duel began. Chu Tian said, "And I thought you were going to avoid the battle again?" "Humph. In consideration of how many spiritual stones you've given me, let's begin. I'll give you 3 moves." Swish, swish, swish. Without another word, Li Qingshan shot out 3 water arrows, but they did not even penetrate Chu Tian's protective true qi. Water techniques were not known for their offensive power, and he did not even use his full strength. Courtesy demands reciprocity. I'll give you 3 moves as well. Make your move. Chu Tian was furious. He had never thought he would still dare to play tricks on him. Sharp golden light lit up in his hand, and like a blade, he slashed out. He bellowed, "Golden crescent slash." An extremely sharp half-moon-shaped golden light whizzed through the air. 1 move. Li Qingshan took half a step back and naturally moved his body to the side. The golden crescent slash brushed past him, but he was completely unharmed. Before he could even turn around, he felt a tremor beneath his feet. Single log. Chu Tian's voice rang out just now. His right foot flickered with green light as he stomped on the ground. A huge log broke out of the ground with a boom, rushing into the air. 2 moves. Li Qingshan leapt up gently and stomped down. The huge log shattered with a boom. Waves of heat rushed over, and the flames dyed Li Qingshan's face red. Chapter 311. The stands fell silent. Chu Tian's strength. Everyone was shocked. Not only did the 3 moves contain metal, wood, and fire elemental techniques, and they were startlingly powerful. If it was them, they would probably be killed in the first move. Being in such a flame, it would be difficult for them to escape death. Against an opponent like that, how could they win? And they even pretended to let him take 3 moves. They were basically digging their own graves. Yu Zijian felt her hand ache from the grip. Hua Qinglu panicked. "Are you worried about your spiritual stones?" "I'm worried about him." Hua Qinglu suddenly understood. Her face reddened. "You're still in the mood to joke around. Don't worry, Qinglu. He doesn't seem like someone who will be defeated by a move like that." Yu Zijian patted Hua Qinglu's hand. "On Li Qing Mountain. That person's shadow seemed to appear. It was an unyielding will." Lu Changqing smiled. Chu Tian's temperament was still a little lacking, but his strength was unquestionable. Not only was his true qi 10 times that of regular people, he also used the principle of mutual generation of the 5 elements. The power of his techniques was extremely great too. Li Qingshan wanted to fight him without knowing his limits. But he was asking for trouble. If he used this move, even if he didn't die, he would be heavily injured. He couldn't fight anymore, right? Chu Tian laughed aloud. "Just like the last duel." "Just you. Are you worthy of letting me take 3 moves?" "General Han. In this battle, I've won, haven't I?" Han Anjuan stood on a high platform not far away. He stood like a stone statue, as if he didn't hear what Chu Tian said. Suddenly he raised his hand. He pointed at the raging fire. Chu Tian frowned. His pupils constricted. Li Qingshan stood unscathed in the sea of fire. He didn't even change his posture. His entire body. It was shrouded in an oval light blue screen. No matter how much the raging flames attacked, none of them moved an inch. Li Qingshan said, 3 moves. Water curtain. This was one of the many water spells. He was one of the more famous ones. It was a defensive spell. It could neutralize power and counteract attacks. However, the water screen art of a 7th layer Qi practitioner was nothing. How could it resist Chu Tian's raging flame bird? Not just Chu Tian. Even Lu Zhangqing could not figure it out. Li Qingshan laughed and said, "What do you think? Do you want me to let you have another 3 moves? Since you're the one who doesn't know what's good for you. Don't blame me for being merciless." Chu Tian was enraged. His hands formed a seal. It was extremely fast. It was as if a few pairs of hands had appeared out of thin air. Li Qingshan did not take the opportunity to attack. He just crossed his arms and watched. It was as if he had really made up his mind. He was going to let him have another 3 moves. Even the heads of the various families felt that he was being too arrogant. But in his heart, he had other plans. Chu Tian withdrew his hands. All the illusions disappeared. And in front of his chest, he suddenly slapped the ground. An incredible loud roar. The onlookers felt that the high platform under their feet seemed to be trembling slightly. It was as if there was an earthquake. A crack instantly appeared between Chu Tian's hands. It spread to the feet of Li Qingshan. A giant earthy yellow palm stretched out from the ground. It grabbed at Li Qingshan. 5 thick fingers. It was as if a stone pillar was clamping over. Li Qingshan jumped up. He rode on the clouds. He flew around the field. He looked down. The entire martial arts field was covered in cracks. The earthy yellow arm stretched out from the ground. It reached into the sky. Then it was pressed to the ground. A vague human figure borrowed the force to stand up. It was like a giant that had slept for 1,000 years. It was awakened by the battle outside. Earth and rocks flowed down from its body. A complete humanoid figure appeared. It was 100 feet tall. It cast a huge shadow. It even covered many of the high platforms. Everyone on the viewing platform was shocked. What spell is this? Earth Strongman. Earth Elder Huang's eyes narrowed into a line. What? This is the Earth Strongman? Beside Earth Elder Huang stood a tanned and simple young man. He cried out in surprise. He also knew this spell. And he was at the 10th level of Qi refinement. Earth Strongman. It was an earth element spell. As long as one cultivated earth true Qi, they could use it. But if it was used by an ordinary little Qi refinement cultivator, it was only the size of a human. A high-level Qi refinement cultivator. They might be able to summon one that was 20 to 30 feet tall. But such a tall earth strongman. It had already surpassed the understanding of ordinary Qi refinement cultivators. They couldn't figure out what spell this was. The power of the spell. It was basically determined by 3 factors. Innate attributes, the amount of true Qi, as well as the study and understanding of the spell itself. Chu Tian was in these 3 factors. They were undoubtedly the best, especially in the last point, with the advantage of being a reincarnated deva. Regarding the use of spells, it was almost self-taught. He was born with knowledge. Even the head disciple of the agricultural school couldn't compare to him. After all, this was an era of peace. Ordinary Qi refinement cultivators wouldn't spend too much effort on spells. Chu Tian stood on the shoulder of the earth strongman. He gazed at Li Qingshan from above. You want to admit defeat now? It's too late. I'm going to kill you. No one can save you. Extremely arrogant words. But no one felt that he was boasting. Such a huge creature. It carried thousands of kilograms of earth and stone. It punched down. Protective true Qi and defensive spells were all useless. He was instantly smashed into meat paste. It was too late for others to save him. This battle had unknowingly happened. It had already turned into a life and death battle. Han Anjuan's eyelashes trembled. The head disciple of the military school, Han Tie, said, "General." Han Anjuan said, "Let him kill." Chu Tian laughed wildly. He controlled the earth strongmen. He stretched out his huge hand to grab Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan rode a cloud. It was extremely thrilling. He flew out from between the giant fingers. His vision darkened. The other hand was already smashing down. The cloud quickly fell. Only then did he avoid the punch. There was a loud bang. The earth strongman's fist heavily hit the ground. A visible shockwave. It spread in all directions. Wherever it passed, thousands of tons of earth and stone jumped. Some of the Qi refinement cultivators on the platform. They were so scared that they almost ran away. A screen of light appeared. Hundreds of stone pillars on the platform. It formed a semicircular screen of light. It covered the entire great martial arts stage. The shockwave dissipated. A huge crater was left on the ground. Its power made everyone speechless. Was this really a spell cast by a 7th-layer Qi refinement cultivator? The earth strongman raised its arm. It could almost grab every corner of the great martial arts stage. And there was no vital point to speak of. Li Qingshan rode a cloud. Just like a flying insect. He weaved in and out of the way. He narrowly avoided the grabs of the earthen strongman again and again. Chu Tian laughed loudly. "What? You only know how to run? Or do you want to consume my true Qi? I might as well tell you. I am the earth strongman. Once it was born. It uses the earth as its foundation. Its power is endless." 12 moves. Chu Tian was startled. "What did you say?" Li Qingshan laughed. "Going easy on you." The sloppy Daoist laughed. He drank a mouthful of wine. "This kid is still so arrogant. I like it. What a pity." F*CKU. Chu Tian was furious. The earth strongman opened its huge mouth. It let out a soundless roar. It moved its feet like an earthquake. It opened its arms. It pounced towards Li Qingshan. A huge shadow covered him. Li Qingshan felt like a mountain was falling towards him. The smile on his face didn't change. "Since you want to play, then I'll play with you." The two huge palms clapped together heavily. The clouds dissipated. Hua Qinglu cried out in shock. This time, wasn't Li Qingshan dead for sure? Why didn't the referee Han Anjuan do anything? Was he really going to watch Li Qingshan die? Chu Tian said, "I told you. I want to kill you." No one. The earth strongman opened its hands. There was nothing inside. There was only a pool of water. Water incarnation technique. Water condensation technique. It could confuse the real from the fake. In the field, sounds of surprise rose. A shadow covered Chu Tian. Chu Tian didn't care. At this height, the only thing that could block the light was the clouds. Chu Tian saw many Qi practitioners pointing behind them in surprise. He suddenly turned around. He saw the cloud. A cloud giant even taller than the earth strongman. His left hand grabbed the earth strongman's shoulder. His right hand clenched into a fist. It fiercely hit the earth strongman's face. The earth strongman staggered backwards. It fell heavily to the ground. It hit the light screen that covered the martial arts field. A large part of the earth strongman's face caved in, revealing the soil and rocks inside. It poured down. This punch was supposed to hit Chu Tian on the earth strongman's shoulder. But his reaction wasn't slow. He dodged it. Li Qingshan sat on the cloud giant's shoulder. He said, "What a coincidence. I also know similar spells." During the time he was in seclusion, Li Qingshan didn't just practice Qi. He also tried to practice the spells that came with the Gui water condensing Qi method. And once he practiced, he felt different. These spells that originally required him to spend a lot of time to understand and master. Suddenly, he didn't have any difficulties. As long as he learned a little, he could use them. And the effect was excellent. He didn't become a genius overnight. This had nothing to do with comprehension. It was instinct. Like how fish can swim, birds can fly, controlling all the water spirits in the world. This was the instinct of the spirit turtle. The change that the spirit turtle's sea suppression method brought to him. Almost the essence. So he stayed in the underground cave. He learned all the dozen or so water spells. 3 days before the duel, Li Qingshan didn't stay idle. He asked Lu Chuanfeng to find some more powerful spells. Water spells that were suitable for duels. Lu Chuanfeng wasn't doing well. But he was still the head of a family. Senior and junior brothers sold these things. He immediately found a few powerful water spells for him. The Cloud Ridge Giant was one of them. To learn the Cloud Ridge Giant, first, he had to learn how to ride the clouds. The Cloud Ridge Giant was formed from the clouds. It was huge. That was why it was called the Giant. It wasn't stronger than Chu Tian's earthen strongman. But it seemed like it had the upper hand. How dare you! How dare you! Chu Tian roared. The punch seemed to have landed on his face. It was a burning pain. He wanted to use the duel to gain an advantage. To kill Li Qingshan in a second. But the reality was out of his expectations again and again. The earthen strongman stood up again. The injury on its face recovered quickly. 2 gigantic creatures. They stood on the great martial arts field. It was as if they had returned to the ancient battlefield. All the Qi practitioners were dumbfounded. They were all confused. Was this really a duel between 2 Qi practitioners? And a 7th-layer Qi practitioner at that. To be continued. Chapter 312. Although the name is a bit weird, it's actually a speech asking for votes at the beginning of the month. But I still want to take this opportunity to talk about some things. The novel itself. This month was unexpectedly difficult. First, my grandfather passed away, and I had to stop writing for a week. But that was only the effect. Some profound things were puzzling me. This kind of trouble could be said to be the main culprit behind the intermittent progress of Su Xianxia. It had deeply tormented me, and when I thought that I could avoid it by rewriting the next chapter, it came looking for me again. I didn't even know what it was until one day, I suddenly realized that what troubled me was not my shortcomings, but my strengths. You might be wondering, how could my strengths become a problem? Everything would have to return to its essence. Why did I write novels? I believe that most people are the same. If you have ever thought of writing novels, you will definitely have the same experience. At first, it comes from the flash of inspiration in your heart. A strange idea, a moving picture, and then it will expand infinitely, making you feel that you must write something. But when many people start writing, they find that they can't express the inspiration in their heart and give up. Fortunately, I have this ability. Those inspiration will turn into interesting and moving paragraphs. My advantage was that my heart did not lack these lights. They were like inexhaustible starlight. Every day, they would jump out and shout at me, "Write about me. Write me." I can only say, okay. Because this is my mission, to use an invisible line to connect them, so that they can shine in front of you. But it's not that simple. I understand, what did I do wrong? The story of drawing legs on a snake, I think everyone has heard of it. I used to think of these ancient fables as a fool's story. Who would do that? Until a certain moment, right at this moment, I suddenly realized that I was such a fool. Writing a novel is not about drawing a line, but drawing a snake, with a head and a tail, and a winding snake body in the middle. But this snake was too long and too big, so I often forgot about it. In order to let the light in my head shine, guess what I did? That's right, I added legs to the snake. This wasn't an easy task. Thus, I cut it off, saying that I had to consider the plot. But no matter how beautiful these feet were, no matter how seriously I drew them, not to mention you, even I could feel that something was wrong. Thus, I cut it off. You know the result. Those with snake legs will eventually die. I finally understood. Those lights were beautiful, moving, and interesting, but they didn't belong in this story. They belonged in another story, in another style. It would be a good thing for both the book and myself if there weren't so many distorted mystical auras. I would be able to peacefully grind monsters and level up. Perhaps that thing wasn't glowing, but it was definitely a snake. If you complain about why others are worse than you, but more successful than you, most likely, It is because you have committed a great folly without knowing it, and it is a folly so simple as to be accurately described in a fable. Sometimes, putting in so much effort is not as good as drawing by someone else. After writing so much nonsense, perhaps you are already tired of it. For a declaration asking for votes, this can also be considered a snake leg. I should use this period of time to write another chapter, shout, erupt, and raise the morale. How old habits are hard to change. I can only say that I am indeed not the heavens. I don't have the talent to become a god in one day, but I will be like Li Qingshan, advancing step by step. Please accompany me, please lend me a hand. Because I won't be satisfied with drawing a generation of snakes. Right now, it is just that my strength isn't enough. One day, not only will I add feet, but I will also add claws, scales, horns, ears, mane, tail, and finally, the finishing touch. Perhaps I can attract wind and thunder, break through walls, and ride on the clouds. When that day comes, I will let you sit beside the dragon's horn, ride the wind, and fly above the 9 heavens. To be continued. Chapter 3:13. If it was Chu Tian, then so be it. He had always been known as a genius, but Li Qingshan was a school disciple they had mocked for a very long time. He was a clown that satisfied their sense of superiority. Perhaps it was because of the 3 of them, but no one treated him as a genius. At this moment, reality told them that Li Qingshan was a true genius, a genius that could rival Chu Tian. Their Mahist mockery was so foolish. Their sense of superiority immediately collapsed. On the platform where the Mahist disciples stood, Hao Pingyang patted Zhang Lanqing's shoulder. I knew this kid had other tricks up his sleeve. Zhang Lanqing smiled at ease as well. He had been worried for a very long time in the past 3 days. He sure stood in a corner of the platform and gazed at Li Qingshan on the cloud ridge giant. All he felt was fear. Yu Zijin praised, so powerful. Hua Qinglu said, this guy really is something else. I knew it. With my insight, how could I be wrong? Wu Zhen asked himself. Could he, an 8th layer Qi practitioner, be the opponent of either one of them? He glanced at Chen Rongji. She had been smiling the entire time. She was neither worried nor surprised, as if she had predicted everything. This only added to her strange charm. He had once believed himself to be a conqueror, but only now did he suddenly discover that he had been attracted by her strength. There was no confusion, no hesitation, and no laziness in her strength. Perhaps it was time for him to cast everything aside and focus on cultivation. Perhaps he needed to be like Li Qingshan and enter secluded cultivation for a while. Old Wang, what do you think? Hua Sengzan looked back and smiled. Interesting, but it's still nowhere near enough. Then let's see how it goes. Chu Tian and Li Qingshan's gazes clashed in the air above the main martial arts stadium. So I've been watching you the entire time, Chu Tian said in some disbelief. Likewise. I'm very surprised that you can say that, Li Qingshan said calmly. But if you think you can defeat me like this, you're far too naive. What cloud ridge giant? It's just a facade. Watch as my earthen strongman shatters it. Dong 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 dong. The earthen divine strongmen charged toward the cloud ridge giant with heavy footsteps, like the beating of war drums. Although the grand martial arts practice field had the word big in it, it was only relative to the size of a human. For these 2 enormous creatures, it was like a narrow arena, with no way to escape or dodge. The giant fist was like 10,000 tons of earth and rocks pouring down from the top of the mountain. It smashed towards the cloud ridge giant's head, or more accurately, Li Qingshan, who was next to the giant's head. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Li Qingshan smiled. He had noticed this a long time ago. Chu Tian did not know any fighting techniques. Just now, if he was the one controlling the Earth strongman, he would have already grabbed the cloud and wouldn't have been hit by the fist. When he punched out now, there was no pattern to it. It was purely the fighting style of an ordinary person. Chu Tian could kill the vast majority of Qi practitioners with his spells. There was no need for him to train his muscles and bones or learn any combat techniques. With the size of the earthen strongmen, this kind of fighting style was enough. But today was not enough. The Cloud Ridge Giant tilted its head, and the Earthen Strongman's punch missed. A cloud pillar soared into the sky, and a vicious uppercut smashed the Earthen Strongman's jaw. The Cloud Ridge Giant was too huge, and it only had a blurry humanoid shape. Its eyes and mouth were only 3 sunken nests. And no legs at all. It was just a long tail of clouds. It was also impossible for Li Qingshan to use all of his martial arts, but as long as he recognized the form, he would be able to use it. After making a good judgment, boxing was enough to bully a layman like Chu Tian. Taking advantage of the Earthen Strongman's loss of balance, the Cloud Ridge Giant floated forward and punched the Earthen Strongman's face. With a boom, the Earthen Strongman's nose was shattered. If it was a human, this would have been painful, but the Earthen Strongman was not made of flesh and blood, so it did not know pain or dizziness. Under Chu Tian's control, it threw a punch at the Cloud Ridge Giant's chest. With such a huge body, it was impossible for it to dodge. Li Qingshan did not have any intentions of dodging. The Cloud Ridge Giant welcomed the punch and continued to charge forward, sending the Earthen Strongman flying. The Earthen Strongman's punch pierced through the Cloud Ridge Giant, creating a hole in it. Chu Tian laughed, "Die for me." What responded to him was a combination of punches. A left jab, a right hook, all in one go, forcing the Earthen Strongman back. Its face was already completely blurry. Li Qingshan laughed and said, "Idiot." Inheriting the water element's weakness in fighting, the Cloud Ridge Giant was not good at fighting. Its destructive power could not compare to the Earthen Strongman's. Even in terms of defense, it was different from the Earthen Strongman's defense. It was better at absorbing and dispersing damage. Clouds surged over and filled up the hole in the blink of an eye. The weak Cloud Ridge Giant happened to counter the Earthen Strongman that won through brute force. On the stands, everyone was stunned. They had never thought that Li Qingshan would gain the upper hand as soon as he did. He would be fine until now. He was not being arrogant by letting you attack 3 times. Was he really a disciple of his family? Hit him. Hit him. Watching Lu called out. Boom, 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 boom. The Cloud Ridge Giant forced the Earthen Strongman to the edge of the stadium and swung its fists to its heart's content. The Earthen Strongman retaliated desperately, but it was unable to break free from its predicament. Instead, it seemed weak and powerless. The slovenly Daoist priest laughed aloud. "Jichenzi, this is what they call using softness to overcome hardness. Interesting, interesting. What a pity, what a pity. Li Qingshan, you've truly angered me. You will pay the price." Chu Tian's hands flashed as he formed seals again. With a caw, a huge bird of fire unfurled its wings and rushed into the air, lunging towards the Cloud Ridge Giant. It was even larger than the one just now. Chu Tian rode on the bird's back. The flames dyed him scarlet red as tongues of fire revolved around him. At that moment, no one cared about his lack of handsomeness. He seemed like a god that could control fire. Lu Changqing stroked his beard and smiled. Just this move was enough to vaporize the Cloud Ridge Giant completely. At this moment, a dragon's roar drowned out the caw. A water dragon stabbed over and bit the bird's neck. The dragon's horns, scales, claws, and teeth were all formed from flowing water. Waterfall dragon. This was the most destructive technique Li Qingshan had grasped so far. The water dragon bit the firebird and rushed into the sky, slamming heavily against the screen of light. The screen seemed to shake. Chu Tian looked down in shock and saw Li Qingshan standing between the dragon's horns. The azure water swirled around his robe, but he wasn't wet at all. He wore a faint smile on his face, as if he were laughing at his powerlessness. Chu Tian gritted his teeth and roared inwardly, "How dare you laugh at me? How dare you, a mere mortal, laugh at me? I'm a celestial." Flames rose from the firebird's body as it pecked the dragon's head, breaking its horns. Its 2 claws tore through the dragon's scales. The water that contained the water dragon's life force poured down, but was evaporated before it could reach the ground. The waterfall dragon coiled around the firebird and pierced its claws deep into its body. Feathers fell from the sky and turned to ashes. With a sizzling sound, a large cloud of steam spread out. On the ground, the Cloud Ridge Giant and the Earthen Strongman were still waving their fists. Many of the Qi practitioners on the spectator stands had their mouths wide open, as if they had been struck dumb. It was as if they were on a primordial battlefield. In the sky, divine beasts rode on water and fire, while on the ground, giants fought endlessly with spears in their hands. There were also many people who clenched their fists and made up their minds to focus on cultivation. Qi practitioners of this era rarely got to see battles between cultivators above the foundation establishment stage. This kind of battle was a huge blow to their minds. Lu Changqing looked around the spectator stands and saw everyone's expressions. No matter who won or lost, this battle was a good thing for the 100 schools of thought. It would allow the disciples who were used to peace to see what a real battle of magical power was like. It seemed that he needed to hold more duels like this in the future. Based on the information he had recently received, he could vaguely smell the scent of war. The outcome of this battle had been obvious from the beginning. It all depended on when Chu Tian would give up on his meaningless arrogance. As the dragon and the bird fought, Li Qingshan and Chu Tian were closer than ever. They could clearly see the anger and smiles on each other's faces. Li Qingshan. Chu Tian roared as he charged toward Li Qingshan on the back of the bird. 5-colored true energy appeared around him, forming a giant 5-colored hand that slammed down toward Li Qingshan. Palm of the 5 elements. Li Qingshan stood on the dragon's head and rushed into the air. The true energy in his sea of qi surged, fusing it all into the punch. Like a tsunami, he punched out. Lu Changqing said, "The outcome has been determined." The fist and palm collided, and the water dispersed. At this moment, the water dragon that was locked in a stalemate with the fire bird dispersed as well, evaporating into surging steam. Although the Cloud Ridge Giant had gained the upper hand in close combat with the Earthen Strongman, dispersing most of the Earthen Strongman, its body had been greatly depleted. Both of them were only around 10 or 20 feet tall. They could no longer attract attention, much less decide the outcome of the battle. All everyone saw was Li Qingshan rapidly fall down, plunging into the mist and vanishing. Li Qingshan had lost. His full-powered punch could not stop Chu Tian's cultivation method, the palm of the 5 elements. Hua Qinglu suddenly felt sad. Indeed, no matter how hard ordinary people worked, they could never defeat a genius, let alone a reincarnated celestial like Chu Tian. Many Qi practitioners on the other platforms felt gloomy as well. They had originally come to watch Li Qingshan make a fool of himself, but when Li Qingshan truly demonstrated the strength to take on Chu Tian, they subconsciously leaned towards Li Qingshan. This was because Li Qingshan was a weakling. Compared to Chu Tian, he was a mortal like them. They wanted to see a mortal defeat a genius, just like how ordinary people always looked forward to miracles. Chu Tian descended from the sky and used the 5-element palm seal to shatter the Cloud Ridge Giant. He looked around and gave a cold laugh in his heart, "Truly an idiot, daring to scold me. Facing my 5-element palm seal head-on, you're probably half dead by now. You've actually reduced me to such a horrible state. Watch as I take your life with a single palm strike." Hua Qinglu stood up and arrived on the platform where Han Anjuan stood. "Uncle Han, please decide the outcome." However, Han Anjuan, who had always been unsmiling and as cold as a rock, curled his lips slightly. "The outcome has been determined." Chapter 314. Qingshan. How Pingyang and Zhang Lanqing both paled in fright when they saw Li Qingshan fall from the sky. He Isha relaxed instead. He looked at Han Anjuan on the platform in the distance. As long as he did not interfere, it would be best if Chu Tian could kill Li Qingshan and prevent any future problems. "Yeah, the outcome has already been determined. Why don't you hurry up and separate them? Chu Tian wants to kill Li Qingshan," Hua Qinglu said in a hurry and grabbed Han Anjuan's sleeve. The Han family and the Hua family had been friends for generations, and they did not follow the teachings of Confucianism, so they did not have much etiquette. Han Anjuan said, "Let him kill him." Hua Qinglu turned to Han Tie and said, "Tie." However, Han Tie seemed to be carved from the same mold as Han Anjuan. Even the words he spoke were exactly the same, which made Hua Qinglu so angry that she stomped her foot. She arrived on the platform where Wang Puxi and Hua Sengzan stood, only to see Wang Puxi staring straight at the center of the ring as if he was stunned. Just when she was about to speak, Hua Sengzan pointed. "Look. What are you looking at?" Hua Qinglu looked over with a frown. All she saw was that the barrier of light had already dispersed, and the rolling mist gradually drifted away. Cold light flowed on the 3-foot-long sword, extending along the straight ridge to the two ends. One end disappeared into the black dragon's mouth. It was the blade. The dragon's body coiled into the hilt, held in a powerful hand. Li Qingshan leaned forward as if he had poured all of his strength into the sword. He murmured, "If I want to kill you, I only need a single strike." The other end had completely sunk into Chu Tian's back. Chu Tian's face twisted from pain and fear. He did his best to turn around. His eyes widened in disbelief, as if he wanted to say something, but blood gushed out first. The sword chi was currently destroying his organs. As long as Li Qingshan twisted the sword gently or swung it horizontally, Chu Tian would be a dead man. No matter how great a genius he would not be able to escape the fate of death. However, Li Qingshan's hand didn't move at all. It wasn't that he didn't want to move, but he never showed mercy when it came to killing. Her other hand was white as snow. He pinched the blade with 3 fingers and cut off the killing intent. Lu Zhangqing stood between Li Qingshan and Chu Tian. His brows were firmly furrowed, still filled with shock. He had never imagined that Chu Tian would actually lose, and lose so quickly that he was almost unable to rescue him in time and died in the grand martial practice grounds. Li Qingshan really wanted to try it on his own. Could he break free from the shackles of these 3 fingers? He killed Chu Tian with his sword. However, this thought only lasted for a moment before he let go of the sword hilt and cupped his hands towards Lu Changqing. Patriarch Lu. Long time no see. Outside the grand martial arts arena, the absolute silence turned into an uproar. What was going on? At that moment, what the hell happened? The pervading clouds didn't affect Chu Tian's keen senses, and he immediately found Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan was half kneeling on the ground, seemingly injured. Chu Tian wanted to say a few words to humiliate Li Qingshan, but he thought that Han Anjuan might intervene. He swallowed his words and went straight up. With a ruthless face, he slapped down with his palm. With a puff, Li Qingshan was smashed into pieces by the 5 elements palm print, turning into a pool of water. A deathbed struggle? Chu Tian was mildly surprised, but he did not mind it too much. After using so many techniques, Li Qingshan's true qi had definitely been depleted much more than his. Now that he had taken a palm strike from him, Li Qingshan was like a toothless tiger. He posed no threat at all. This thought was cut off by an extremely terrifying sword intent. Behind Chu Tian, as the clouds churned, a tall figure could be seen approaching at high speed. Murderous intent soared into the sky, light and shadow twisted, and Li Qingshan's figure appeared. His body was like a tiger, and his gaze was like a dragon. 5 elements protection. It was too late to turn around. The 5-colored palm returned to Chu Tian's body, turning into an oval 5-colored light shield. 5 colors floated and fluctuated, and 5 kinds of power twisted and blended. It contained the principle of the 5 elements restraining each other. Water came with earth, wood came with metal. Its defensive ability was far better than ordinary protective spells. This was what Qian Rongji told Li Qingshan. In the silent night bamboo forest, mottled light and shadow, Qian Rongji's red lips opened slightly, and she explained the power of the 5 elements palm print. If you can't break through his 5 elements protection, you definitely won't be able to defeat him. I will win. Li Qingshan simply stated this fact, although he was not confident that he could pierce through the 5-colored light shield. The path of fighting and killing had never been about the amount of true qi or the strength of magical arts. Therefore, his provocation, his ridicule, his dominance, and his defeat were all in preparation for this moment. After a fierce battle, Chu Tian also consumed a lot of true qi, and his mood was extremely relaxed. So Li Qingshan used the glaze invisibility mirror and instantly hid all his aura, and used the water transformation incarnation as bait. It was all for this sword. Without hesitation, Li Qingshan integrated the 100-sword qi in his dantian into this sword. The 100-sword qi collided with the 5-colored light shield, and there was a sound like glass shattering. The tip of the sword tasted blood, and the sword qi crazily rushed into Chu Tian's body. Victory or defeat was in the blink of an eye. Lu Changqing took a deep look at Li Qingshan and patted Chu Tian's chest. An unstoppable righteousness rushed into Chu Tian's body and forced the sword out. The sword shattered in the air. Li Qingshan rubbed his chest. Chu Tian's palm of the 5 elements truly was impressive. Even now, his arm and chest still ached slightly. If it were not for his inhumanly tough body, it really would have been difficult to say who would emerge victorious. Lu Zhangqing's frown deepened. He had intended to force out all of the sword qi, but the sharpness of the sword qi had far surpassed his initial expectations. It was difficult for it to remain under his righteous aura. Chu Tian's cultivation would probably be greatly damaged after suffering such a serious injury. Lu Changqing looked up at Han Anjuan, questioning why the judge did not stop the situation midway. As the leader of the military school, his reaction speed was definitely much faster than his, and he would not let Chu Tian suffer such a serious injury. I've already said it. With a swish, Han Anjuan vanished from the platform and appeared before Li Qingshan, proving that he possessed this ability. Hua Qinglu suddenly understood what Han Anjuan meant. Let him kill him was not for Chu Tian to kill Li Qingshan, but for Li Qingshan to kill Chu Tian. He would not interfere at all. Lu Changqing let out a long sigh. Chu Tian was far too good at offending people. Han Anjuan's original responsibility was to prevent any injuries or deaths from the duel. Chu Tian's shout, "If I want to kill you, no one can stop me," was basically a slap to the face. Han Anjuan handed the 8,000 spiritual stones to Li Qingshan and even patted him on the shoulder. He said, "You've done well, but your battle is still lacking. You can come to my school of the military in the future to take a look." This made all the spectating military disciples widen their eyes. They had never heard their school leader praise a person like this, let alone speak so much in one go. This was basically a supreme honor. He had already gained the acknowledgement of the school of the military. Han Anjuan had fought for many years, so he possessed a sharp sense for all battles. When Chu Tian made a ruckus about killing Li Qingshan, he had already guessed the outcome. This was all because of the difference in their states. One was arrogant and conceited, eager to destroy his opponent. The other was extremely calm and carried out his actions in an orderly manner. There were far too many examples like this in the countless battles where the weak triumphed over the strong. Since the calm was bold enough to take the initiative to challenge the strong, they definitely had a certain level of confidence. Those who calculate victory before the battle have to calculate too much. Those who fail to calculate victory before the battle have to calculate too little. Those who fail to calculate too much will win, and those who fail to calculate too little will lose, let alone those who fail to calculate at all. Afterwards, Han Anjuan seemed to be admiring a classic battle. Li Qingshan's army was nowhere near his opponents. First, he harassed the enemy from the flank, then faced them head-on and provoked them. In the end, he feigned defeat to lure the enemy into a hopeless situation. 300 sacrificial soldiers whistled out, charging straight into the main tent and beheading their general. He couldn't say anything to praise the precision of his calculations. Li Qingshan respectfully said, "Yes, General." Although Han Anjuan's cultivation was not the highest among the various school heads, he believed that if there really was a chaotic battle, this person in front of him would definitely be the last one to survive. Han Anjuan loudly announced, "This battle is over. Li Qingshan is victorious." Clang. The giant lumberman, Wood Kuei, struck the gong, announcing the end of the duel. Cheers rang out from the stands, loudly shouting the name Li Qingshan. Even quite a few Confucian disciples joined in. This was not just Li Qingshan's contribution. Chu Tian had spent the past few months in the 100 schools of thought, flirting with female cultivators and bossing around male cultivators. The moment he opened his mouth, he would say that he was a genius, and the next he would say that he was a genius. He was truly ridiculing them, but they couldn't do anything to him, so they took this opportunity to explode out. Hao Pingyang raised his arms and shouted the loudest. Zhang Lanqing clenched his fists excitedly. In a corner, He Shi's face was ashen. The two girls who were following Chu Tian staggered over and wept beside Chu Tian. "Brother Tian, what's wrong, Brother Tian? I refuse to accept this. I refuse to accept this. You despicable bastard, I didn't lose. I didn't lose." Chu Tian suddenly returned to his senses. His eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Li Qingshan, as if he still wanted to fight him. He was extremely reluctant to accept this. He had not used that item yet. He still had a powerful trump card that he had not taken out. As long as he took it out, Li Qingshan definitely would not be his opponent. Firstly, he did not want to expose that item, and secondly, he was confident that he could deal with Li Qingshan with techniques. Who would have thought that the tables would turn so violently and so quickly? He was like a general who had been killed by a sacrificial soldier. He was still talking about the army of 100,000 that he had yet to mobilize, yet his head had already flown into the air, dying with his eyes wide open. "Yes, Brother Tian. You haven't lost." "No, you've lost." Qian Rongji interrupted. Chu Tian was stunned. In the past few days, he had expressed his goodwill to Qian Rongji plenty of times. Qian Rongji was not like other female cultivators, who disliked him for having so many women around him. He thought they were already friends. "Qian Rongji, you bitch," a young girl cursed. However, Qian Rongji did not look at them. She crouched down and held Chu Tian's hand. Her eyes were filled with motherly pity, as if she felt sorry for him from the bottom of her heart. She said softly, "Little Tian, everyone loses. It's fine if you lose once, as long as you can stand up again. Get some sleep first." Chu Tian felt a surge of warmth from the bottom of his heart. Her gaze was so gentle, as if it could soothe all pain in his heart. There was no mockery, no disdain, only pity. Right now, she was the most beautiful woman in his heart. Chapter 315. Lu Changqing frowned. How could this legalist disciple know about bewitching techniques? However, seeing that she was Chu Tian's friend and had indeed calmed his mind, he didn't stop her. Qian Rongji used the opportunity when Chu Tian's mind was in a mess to imprint her image deeply into his heart. Of course, this wasn't something like a thought seed. She didn't know how to do it, and even if she did, she wouldn't dare to do it in front of so many patriarchs. Her bewitching technique was completely harmless. At most, it would make it easier for Chu Tian to develop a good impression of her and love her. However, this was enough. Compared to the rude and inferior methods of a thought seed, this was more in line with her aesthetic standards. She knew that Chu Tian had something that he didn't reveal to others, not even to the two girls beside him. However, through her inquisition, she found out about the existence of that thing. Just what was it that made the arrogant and conceited Chu Tian act like this? No matter what it was, she would definitely obtain that thing. At the very least, she would have a powerful and easily manipulated fighter. At the very least, she would have a human-shaped medicinal pill. She was afraid that the 5 elemental true qi wouldn't be easy to digest. Chu Tian regained his fighting spirit and glared at Li Qingshan with eyes filled with hatred. "Li Qingshan, you were lucky this time. I won't let you go. I said that if I want to kill you, no one can stop me." Li Qingshan casually said, "I await your arrival." Chu Tian's mind relaxed and he fell into a deep slumber. Of the two girls beside him, the older one said to Qian Rongji, "I'm sorry, Sister Qian. We wronged you." Qian Rongji sighed softly. "I can understand your feelings. Take good care of him." Although Li Qingshan didn't understand the reason behind it, he still felt a wave of sorrow for Chu Tian. "Hopefully, you haven't been swallowed by this poisonous snake before you recover. I still want to earn some more spirit stones." Chu Tian was brought to Benevolence Island by the medicine family's patriarch for treatment. In the blink of an eye, all the patriarchs and chief disciples disappeared. "Qingshan, you don't have to hold a grudge against the Confucian faction. This battle is not necessarily a bad thing for Chu Tianlai. It is a blessing for the 100 schools of thought to have a genius like you. In the future, there will be many sword competitions on the virtuous island. You can come and participate. That sword move of yours was very interesting. Lu Changqing left behind these words. Just now, he left, displaying his outstanding demeanor. At this time, Hua Sengzan came to Li Qingshan and asked, "Where's your wolf token?" Li Qingshan was shocked. Could it be that Wang Puxi disliked him to this extent? If he really was going to be stripped of his position as a Hawkwolf guard, he would not say much. He took out the Black Wolf tablet and passed it to Hua Sengzan. Hua Sengzan took it with one hand and returned a red copper wolf token to him. The glistening red wolf token had fine veins, and its fur was distinguishable. It felt heavy in his hand. Li Qingshan asked, "What's this?" Hua Sengzan said, "Congratulations. You've been promoted. Old Wang told me to give this to you. In the future, if you want to gather information or earn spiritual stones, you can pay a visit to the Hawkwolf Guard of the Clear River Prefecture." Alright. Li Qingshan smiled. If a person wanted to gain the recognition of others, they would have to prove themselves. Wang Puxi and Li Qingshan did not have any grievances. It was just because of their poor first impression, coupled with the fact that they did not get along with each other afterwards. Until today, Li Qingshan had proven himself, but that did not mean Wang Puxi had become fond of Li Qingshan. Instead, regardless of whether he disliked him or liked him, this man had the right to obtain such a status and identity. This was the standard of conduct for disciples of the school of legalism. Now, let's go celebrate. Hua Sengzan climbed onto Li Qingshan's shoulder and called out to Han Tie from afar. "Tie, you're not allowed to leave. You come too. Do you have a cup for me?" The primary disciple of the school of Daoism, Xianxia, went up with a smile. Li Qingshan was mildly surprised. He smiled. "As long as you're a friend, how can you not have a cup of alcohol?" During the banquet that day, Li Qingshan drank quite a lot of alcohol. Initially, Li Qingshan and Hua Sengzan were facing off against each other. Hua Sengzan began to run out very soon. His face became bright red, and he tried to drive a wedge between them, praising Han Tie's alcohol tolerance viciously. Before he knew it, it had become a drinking competition between Li Qingshan and Han Tie. Jar after jar of fine spiritual alcohol was downed, but Han Tie remained cold the entire time. Let alone being drunk, his expression did not even change at all, which made Li Qingshan's heart pound. After drinking over 30 jars, Han Tie suddenly closed his eyes and collapsed like a log. He was completely drunk. "In the end, I still won." Li Qingshan laughed aloud. When he heard that Hua Qinglu had run around for him, he even went out of his way to toast her, which made her blush. Taking advantage of the alcohol, Li Qingshan patted his chest and said, "Miss Hua, you're just like your elder brother. You're a good person. If you run into any trouble in the future, feel free to come find me." Even if he had not drunk any alcohol, he would still have made that promise. Back in Lakeside City, it was all thanks to her assistance that he managed to escape. She even gave him a puppet for free as a birthday present for him. He was a person who could clearly distinguish between kindness and grudges. Perhaps he could avoid revenge, but he had to repay the debt of a single meal. "Really?" Hua Qinglu blinked her eyes. "Really?" Li Qingshan had never been a man of his word, but he would never go back on a promise he had made to a friend. "All right, it's a promise then." Hua Qinglu raised her cup and clinked it against Li Qingshan's gently as if she was considering something. Li Qingshan turned around and went to drink with Xianxia again. Xianxia had not come under the slovenly Daoist priest's orders. Instead, he had come out of his own accord to resolve the grudge between Li Qingshan and the school of Daoism. He was not afraid of Li Qingshan. With a cultivation close to golden core, the slovenly Daoist priest did not fear anyone. If this were a different time and place, the two of them might not have become master and disciple. However, due to a coincidence, they instead resented each other. Xianxia wanted to share his master's burden, and he also felt that Li Qingshan was worth befriending. It had been less than a year since Li Qingshan and entered the 100 schools of thought, but Xianxia firmly believed that they would definitely become influential figures in the Clear River Prefecture in the future, or perhaps even more than that. Using the alcohol, Xianxia said, "What happened back then was not what my master wanted either. He originally admired you very much. He often mentioned to me that it was a pity." Li Qingshan said, "Since it happened back then, there's no need to mention it now. There's nothing wrong with the family. At the very least, we stand on equal footing. We're both primary disciples." Although the slovenly Daoist priest had screwed him over in the past, he was not trying to harm him. At most, he just wanted to vent his anger. Li Qingshan did not let him vent his anger either, cursing him a little instead. With the slovenly Daoist priest's cultivation and status, if he was slightly narrow-minded, it might lead to endless trouble for Li Qingshan. It was evident that he was quite broad-minded. Why would Li Qingshan be obsessed with this? Zhang Lanqing stood to one side with a smile. His face was also slightly flushed. He discovered that if he counted carefully, there were actually 5 primary disciples present. Apart from Li Qingshan's school of Buddhism, Taoism, and the art of war, all of them were renowned major schools. Such a person, no matter where he went, would emit a dazzling light. Li Qingshan returned to Cloud Wisp Island alone, while An went to Ansrava Island. As the primary disciple of the school of Buddhism, she had not even spent as much time on Ansrava Island as an acolyte. No matter how ignorant she was about the ways of the world, she knew this was not particularly appropriate. Moreover, she shouldered another important mission, which was to help Li Qingshan gather pills to complete the final step. The One Thought Master's feelings were mixed, but he still felt happy when he saw his primary disciple return. Before An had even said anything, he offered up many pills for her to cultivate with. No matter how he felt, it would be a complete waste if he allowed a supreme genius like her to suffer on his Ansrava Island or waste her time because of a lack of pills. If he knew the reason behind this, he might have felt like slamming his head against the ground. Fortunately, he probably would never know. He could still roughly calculate how many pills other disciples had consumed and how much cultivation they had completed, but who could calculate her cultivation? And did not need these pills either. The true qi she had condensed in her body right now was nothing more than an illusion. Practicing the path of white bone and great beauty still required refining flesh and blood as a foundation. Li Qingshan had already agreed to take her out to uphold justice in the near future. Yep, that was how he described it. In her second secondary school, it was gourmet. And said, "Master, I want to listen to you expound on the scriptures." All right. Which one do you want to listen to? I'll tell you right now. The One Thought Master was overjoyed. Expounding on the scriptures was an extremely important part of cultivation for Buddhist disciples, but it was also extremely easy for it to be overlooked, especially to genius disciples. If she were a regular disciple, the One Thought Master would tell them earnestly, "Only by comprehending the essence of Buddhism can you achieve twice the results with half the effort when practicing Buddhism." However, with N's cultivation speed, what other method did she need to achieve twice the results with half the effort? Now that N had taken the initiative to request to listen to the scriptures without boasting about her talent, he obviously felt happy from the bottom of his heart. Little did he know that N understood this better than anyone else as she practiced the path of white bone and great beauty. Although she had read through the jade slip called the Scripture Depository, Buddhist scriptures were different from the path of the sword. No matter how clever she was, she could not simply comprehend the essence within. From a certain perspective, scriptures that were purely ideological were much more profound and complicated than most cultivation methods. And said, all of them. The One Thought Master could only smile bitterly. There were as many Buddhist scriptures as the ocean. Although he had read through them all, he had only specialized in a portion of them, but that was already extremely impressive. And would have been fine if she had not asked, but she had thrown a problem the moment she did. The One Thought Master scratched his bald head and finally made up his mind. He wanted to hold a Dharma assembly and invite all the eminent Buddhist monks he knew in the Clear River Prefecture, the 9 prefectures of the Rui Commandery, to come to the Clear River Prefecture to recite for her. He could not just let him bear this punishment alone. When he imagined how his seniors and juniors would be shocked speechless by her, He actually felt rather eager inside. Amitba. I have sinned, I have sinned. Seeing Li Qingshan return through the snow, Lu Chuanfeng suddenly raised his head and straightened his neck. He asked, "You won?" Due to his experience last time, he did not dare to watch the battle this time. "I won." Chapter 316. Li Qingshan really wanted to say, Hey, you don't seem to have anything to do with this." He had not used any of the techniques of the School of Novels from the beginning to the end. Regardless, this battle had greatly boosted the reputation of the School of Novels, which had been in decline for a long time. At the very least, no one dared to mock Li Qingshan, the top disciple of the School of Novels anymore. After his joy, Lu Chuanfeng brought up the past again. "Qingshan, thanks to senior apprentice brother's efforts, the Cloud Wisp Club you mentioned has basically been established. The process of gathering credibility has indeed become much faster. At this rate, there's great hope for me to reach foundation establishment. This was all your idea. You should quickly condense the divine talisman of great creation." Li Qingshan hesitated for a moment, stroking his chin as he muttered to himself. "That's right, Qingshan, you're the only one left." A clear voice rang out from outside the door. Sun Fubai rode the white crane, spiraling down from the sky and landing in the courtyard. Li Qingshan glanced over and almost failed to recognize him. All he saw was that Sun Fubai was still the same Sun Fubai, but he had lost a lot of his white hair. Moreover, his face was ruddy, and there was a slight breeze when he walked. He gave off a joyous feeling like he was in high spirits. The leisure that originally belonged to an old man had faded away, replaced by a desire to forge ahead like a man in his prime. "Senior apprentice brother, your cultivation," Lu Chuanfeng blurted out. The original Sun Fubai had been at the 8th layer of Qi practitioner due to his talent. At this age, it was basically impossible for him to advance any further. However, after not seeing him for more than half a year, Sun Fubai was already at the 9th layer of Qi practitioner. Once his cultivation improved, his true Qi increased greatly, and his 8 extraordinary meridians were all unobstructed. He naturally looked younger. However, the most fundamental thing was still the influence of one's mentality. Compared to staying in the bookstore and waiting for the arrival of destiny, compared to staying in a bookstore and waiting for destiny to arrive, it was undoubtedly more energizing to establish the foundation of the School of Novels and restore the school to its former glory. Sun Fubai smiled and said, "I haven't been idle during this period of time. I've been writing a few things." As large as the Cloud Wisp Club was, it was impossible for Lu Chuanfeng's novels to survive alone. As the boss behind the scenes of the Cloud Wisp Association, Sun Fubai naturally had to make use of the medium he had established. Over the past few days, whenever he was done with his tasks, he would have nothing to do. Then he picked up his brush and started writing again. He had read more than 10,000 books in his life and had experienced the vicissitudes of life. His knowledge and experience were naturally not something that Lu Chuanfeng could compare with. Following the path pointed out by Li Qingshan, he changed his writing style slightly. He wrote about things that the common people liked to hear and see, and the effect was excellent. Now, the popularity of Old Man Sangbai was even higher than that of Master of Wind and Moon, Lu Chuanfeng. He gathered a large amount of power of belief. He had been stuck at the 8th layer of Qi training for many years, and with the help of this power he forcefully crossed the threshold, allowing his cultivation to advance further. Li Qingshan said, "Fubo, why did you come back?" Sun Fubai said, "I heard that you were going to duel with someone, so I came back to take a look. It looks like you won." Now, the remaining 3 members of the School of Novels were gathered together once again. Happy events had happened again. Their hearts were filled with joy. Sun Fubai said, "I also brought something back for you." "Oh, what's this?" Lu Chuanfeng took an ordinary white cloth bag from Sun Fubai's hands. Aside from the red silk binding the bag, there was nothing special about it. There was no sign of spiritual energy either. Li Qingshan also became curious. For cultivators, anything without spiritual energy was not considered a good thing. This gift from Sun Fubai was a little strange. Lu Chuanfeng opened it and saw that it was filled with papers and letters. In order to get feedback from his subordinates in time so that Lu Chuanfeng could change his approach, Sun Fubai had the members of the Cloud Wisp Society ask for their opinions after their storytelling performances in various places. Later on, many listeners would send messages to the Master of Wind and Moon. Even if they were illiterate, there would still be people who would write and record the messages. All of them would be collected and sent to Lu Chuanfeng. Lu Chuanfeng hurriedly opened it and started reading. Naturally, most of the messages were praises, but there were also quite a few suggestions and expectations. He sat there, smiling foolishly. He was the head of the family who had the least dignity in the 100 schools of thought, and was often mocked and looked down upon by others. He had finally found the respect that he hadn't felt in a long time, and he truly understood the beauty of writing novels. This gift was indeed much more valuable than any spiritual pill or spiritual stone. Then, Sun Fubai said to Li Qingshan, "Qingshan, you like to drink, so I've brought back fine alcohol from various places for you. Although it can't compare to spiritual alcohol, which can assist with cultivation, they all have their own tastes." The territory of the 1,500 kilometers of Clear River Prefecture produced several dozen types of famous fine alcohol. The ingredients and brewing methods all differed. Sun Fubai then selected the aged high-grade alcohol from them and brought it back for Li Qingshan. Let alone everything else, just the thought alone was enough to touch people's hearts. Being able to taste fine alcohol from various places while sitting at home was even more delightful. Li Qingshan accepted the several dozen jars of fine alcohol and bowed. "Thank you, Fubai." Sun Fubai smiled. "This is all a small matter. Compared to your idea, it's nothing at all. Now that I've borrowed your idea, I've already planted the seeds. If you don't enjoy the shade below, then you'll be letting down my kind intentions." Having reached this point, just who could still turn him down? Li Qingshan said, "I want to learn how to condense a divine talisman of great creation. Please teach me, Fubai." The power of faith could take on many forms. Although it was very ordinary in Lu Chuanfeng's hands, he didn't know how to fight. For example, he could summon a chain out of thin air. Even if it couldn't trap an enemy, as long as it could be used at a critical moment to disturb an enemy's thoughts, it could turn the tide of a battle. Taking care of a one-track-minded fool like Chu Tian would be even easier. If he took a step further and condensed enough power of faith, even if he could trap the enemy for a second, who knew how many times he could strike? Sun Fubai smiled. The school of novels finally had a legacy. Lu Chuanfeng turned a deaf ear to all of this. He only smiled foolishly at the letters, lying down, squatting, and reading them. Sun Fubai and Li Qingshan looked at each other and smiled. A sea with azure waves surging endlessly. Countless rivers flowed into it. The seawater evaporated, turning into clouds that filled up the rivers. At this time, a mysterious energy suddenly smoothed out all the ripples on the surface of the sea. A deep blue rune rose up from the calm sea. Countless water dragons rose up and gathered on it. The rune became clearer and stronger, emitting a restrained light. Finally, it floated on the sea. Only then did the waves return to the sea. Vaguely, there seemed to be a spirit turtle swimming past. Li Qingshan opened his eyes. There seemed to be a divine talisman flashing in the depths of his eyes. The process of condensing a divine talisman of great creation was much simpler than he had expected. Perhaps because his true qi was pure, he completed it in less than 3 days. However, the Tao of divine talismans was different from ordinary cultivation. Unlike ordinary cultivation, condensing a divine talisman was just the beginning. Sun Fubai had already returned to the prefectural city to deal with the affairs of the Cloud Wisp Society. Li Qingshan gave him a few more suggestions. He hurried back, wanting to make the Cloud Wisp Society even stronger. After Lu Chuanfeng finished reading the letters, he left the 100 schools of thought. He wanted to follow the example of the novelists of ancient times and go out for a gathering. Thus, Li Qingshan, the chief disciple, was the only one left on the vast Cloud Wisp Island. But before he left something for Li Qingshan, an exquisite desk. Brush, ink, paper, and inkstone were already arranged. The pure white paper unfolded, appearing even whiter under the illumination of the snow outside the window. There was a row of weasel bristles of different sizes on the brush rack. Even a crude person like Li Qingshan could not help but want to write something. Several days later, Lu Chuanfeng returned from his gathering. In reality, he had gone to the various branches of the Cloud Wisp Society and heard that the writers had written his novels. He was secretly enjoying it. Riding on the white crane, he had gone to many places in 7 or 8 days. He thought, I wonder how Li Qingshan is doing. Writing novels is not that easy. He must have written some rubbish. I'll teach him a good lesson later and restore my dignity as the head of the family. Lu Chuanfeng arrived at the bamboo loft and saw Li Qingshan sitting at the desk with a brush in hand. Little and was sprawled on the floor, reading the annotations of a Buddhist scripture. When he saw Lu Chuanfeng, he glanced at him but did not say anything. Li Qingshan did not even turn his head. Lu Chuanfeng thought, he's quite serious. He walked over to take a look. The white paper was blank except for a drop of black ink on the tip of the nose. Where's the one you've written? Lu Chuanfeng asked. Li Qingshan slowly turned his head. What's the one you've written? Novels. Lu Chuanfeng said matter-of-factly. However, his eyes were bloodshot and his hair was a little messy. Li Qingshan, who was always in high spirits, actually looked a little dispirited. He little and laughed. Li Qingshan immediately glared at him. He stuck out his tongue and made a funny face. Li Qingshan finally understood what it meant to write 6 words in 3 days. He wanted to write them himself, but he quickly dismissed the idea. Although he had forgotten most of his memories from his previous life, he still remembered some classic stories. However, when he tried to convert these memories into words and write them on the tip of his brush, he immediately felt that he was not cut out for this. He forced himself to write some, but the words were so clumsy that he could not bear to read them. He suddenly realized that the classic stories in his memories were so boring. He tried drinking tea to calm his mind, tried drinking wine to liven things up, but it did not work at all. He could not write at all. He even began to admire Lu Chuanfeng. Regardless of whether it was good or bad, at least he could write a book. Lu Chuanfeng tried his best to suppress his smile, but it still leaked out from every smile line, saying, To think you'd have such a day. He said in a sincere and heartfelt manner, I told you it's not that easy. Everything is difficult at the beginning. Come, let the famous novelist Lady Breeze teach you how to write. Li Qingshan threw his brush aside and stood up. I'm not writing anymore. What's so fun about writing novels? It's a waste of time. I'm going to exercise. He took little and walked out of the door. They rode on the clouds and disappeared into the darkness before dawn. From afar, his reprimanding voice could be heard, Don't laugh. Lu Chuanfeng was speechless. He sighed and shook his head. It seemed that it would not be easy for the school of novels to pass down its legacy. In the evening, Lu Chuanfeng was writing at his desk. Li Qingshan pushed the door open and entered. There were bruises on his face, but he smiled confidently. I want to write novels. Welcome to Legends of Cultivation, audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality.